Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to the virtual chapter for September 2019. It took me a minute. I went slow because I wasn't quite sure what year this was. That happens to
Sure.
me. So welcome. We're really glad to have you. We have a special guest tonight, Connie Rae Andreas, and we'll be talking with her shortly and introducing her to you all. Of course, we always start out with a number of announcements. So there are a few things that we want to let you know about. The virtual chapter is a recognized chapter of IACT and IMDHA, and it is also authorized for members of IHF and ICBCH, and what Karen and I like to say is, and all other friendly hypnosis organizations will give you CEUs for having attended this tonight. So you get an hour and a half.
Wow, that's good.
And the way that you get that, by the way, is just to go to the website of the organization that you are a member of, if it's IACT or IMDHA at least. And when you log in with your member ID, there's a little box for you to put that stuff in. So all of y'all be aware and sign in and get your creds. The other organizations, of course, just call them up and ask them, what do I need to do to get credit? And I'm sure that they will do that for you.
And we appreciate you being here live, but even for people who are watching this on the recording, that is true. Even if you watch the recording, you can still get CEUs for that.
Yes. And this recording, by the way, will be posted by noon tomorrow, maybe even sooner. It will be on the virtual chapter Facebook group. It will be on the IACT and IMDHA forum. If you're a member of those organizations, you can log into the forum. It will also be on our YouTube channel. Virtual Chapter has a YouTube channel, so you can find it there, along with all of the replays of all of the past virtual chapters that we've done over the last, several years now. We're building up quite a collection.
We have something important to announce. I'm sure that you all know, by the way, but the IACT conference is officially moving, and we have the date for it. We know where it's going to be, and you can begin to start thinking about your registration. Michael, you probably have those dates in front of you, because even though we have it,
I've just been
counting on you to have it.
I have just been set up. I'm sorry, I don't have those dates in front of me. It is in April this year. I believe it's the third weekend, and if you go to iact.org or imdha.com, you can find all the information. But it will be in Orlando, and the hotel is really quite spectacular. It's a hotel that I've used before with some other organizations, and they have completely rehabbed this thing, and it is just made for high tech and groups like ours. We're going to have the whole place, and it's going to be lovely. So we're looking forward to that. And Karen, tell them about Chicago.
Well, yes, coming up next month, October 18th, 19th, and 20th, it's time for the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference. It's the 35th or 36th, something like that, annual Mid-America Hypnosis Conference. And it's pretty cool. It's a very friendly conference. It's a boutique conference, about 250 people, and it is a great time. Michael has a pre-conference offering. What will you be teaching at Mid-America?
Actually, I'm going to be teaching core transformation, which
yes.
I would all if it weren't for my affiliation with tonight's guest. Core transformation, a 2-day format, and it's going to be lovely. So please join us for that. And in Chicago, more and more people coming than have been before, and if I dare say so myself, some really cool people.
Yes. I have a 1-day post-conference at Mid-America this year, Reminding for Positive Change. It's really a very flexible system. Asking the right questions, getting the right outcome, and then deciding what to do with your client from that point. So it's a very flexible approach. Those are some things going on. Of course, what we really want to do is this talk tonight. I'm pretty excited. But Michael, if you have more announcements, I won't nudge us in that direction.
Well, I don't, other than to announce in a moment, at least, that we're going to be talking with Connirae Andreas. And I just have to tell you something, is that, as I mentioned in the pre-segment, I've known Connie for 36 years. And it's kind of interesting because this is a lady who, and I don't know if she knows this, actually, but have you ever had an experience where somebody said to you exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment, and it made the inside of your head explode? because honest to God, Connie Rae, this is my experience, is that I I had left I was working in the church. I had left the church. I left the monastery. I had taken a really quick hypnosis course by a lady who was studying NLP. And I'll be darned if in the back of Frogs into Princes, there wasn't this advertisement that compelled me to move to Colorado to take an NLP training from NLP Colorado, as it was known at that time. And you and Steve were running it with a whole bevy of other trainers involved as well. It was such a lovely time and a lovely experience. And I got to admit, my unconscious mind learned a lot more quickly than my conscious mind did. I had already been working with clients and stuff, and I was doing the training on weekends, going back to my work. And I think a lot of times on the weekends of the training, I was confused. I was gobsmacked by the whole thing. And I know that I spent a lot of time confused. And the work that I was doing started changing and getting better and getting better and getting better. And finally, the most confusing thing of all, this was so long ago that submodalities was just barely a thing. There was a new training that the Andreases were doing that was a 12-day advanced submodality training. And towards the very end of a practitioner training at that point, they were teaching the swish pattern. And the swish pattern, as it was being described, is so set up with visual cues and stuff. And I was struggling with it, and I really didn't have the experience of having any pictures in my head at all. I just didn't get this thing about, I understand, there's some people who can have pictures and some people who just can't. And I was frustrated by the process, and I called Connie Rae over and I said, Connie, I just can't get anything here. And she said, you don't really need to see pictures, Michael. She says, just imagine that you can. and honestly, it's the kind of statement that I think today I almost take for granted. But when I heard it at that moment, at that time, it was like suddenly the penny dropped, and everything changed to me. And just so you know, I have a head full of pictures now. They've been hiding up until that point, and it was just such a lovely experience. So I know it's a strange way to introduce you because there's all kinds of things I could say about who you are and academically and all that stuff, but just a really important lady to me. And one thing that I would really say also about Connie Rae is at a time when NLP was being criticized for being a heartless technology, in spite of its, successes, Connie Rae came out with this book called The Heart of the Mind. Connie and Steve, I guess, right? I believe it was both of you. But this lovely book called The Heart of the Mind that sort of softened this idea for therapists who were concerned about this. And I would say really that you brought a heart to NLP that had not been there before. So I've just got to thank you for that and for everything that you've contributed. And thank you for being here tonight. We are just really looking forward to talking to you.
Oh, Michael, thank you so much for those things you've said. The very touching introduction. I didn't know that about the personal story. It's fun to hear how things happen, from somebody else's point of view. Years later, we learn sometimes. And yes, I remember also that early phase in NLP when it was being taught to us as a very mechanistic set of methods that it was actually, to be blunt about it, it was being taught as to how to put one over on somebody. It was like do these methods to somebody and how to use them to learn to influence and control people. And that was understandably off-putting to a lot of folks, including Steve and I. But we were so excited by what was valuable in it. That was so obvious. And it became a very conscious job for us to, okay, how can we translate this? What's the perspective that's from the heart, that's for where everybody benefits, What's the perspective that's about all of us winning, not about manipulating somebody? What's the way of describing this where we understand that this is really about assisting other people having what they want, So, and sometimes now it seems sort of obvious, but it took some conscious thought to translate what had like anchoring presented as, okay, now you're going to make somebody feel a certain way, whenever you want to, and that kind of thing, and translate it into more heartful language. So I appreciate you picking up on that.
Yeah. Well, I think it really made all the difference for me. And it was the reason that I was there,
Yeah. And I just want to say too, there were others in the field too who felt the same desire, this impetus to shift, like you, to shift things over to a heartful approach, to fit more with who we are and what we want to be doing. So it wasn't just Steve and I, other people also in the field.
Yeah.
Other maybe second generation or whatever generation we can call ourselves.
Well, and because it wasn't so mechanistic, you started looking at things in a different way. I mean, one of the things that's obvious is that in your work, Connie Rae, it's like you turned a corner. When you started doing things like core transformation, you were doing something that was qualitatively different from what other folks were doing in the field. It was a whole nother deal. I remember a delightful training. I think I mentioned this in my email to you. Core transformation wasn't the training was called the Aligned Self, and it was at the I always think it's so cool because it was the San Jose Rosicrucian Museum.
So, yes, I remember that training. Yes.
So we got to do exercises and walking timeline, or not timelines, but parental timeline imprinting and things outside around obelisks and sphinxes, and it just collapsed all kinds of anchors. It was magnificent.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, well, you mentioned core transformation, and that was the first big leap that I took in developing. Steve and I had developed a lot of methods up before that time. You mentioned the submodalities methods, and that was perhaps in our partnership, the biggest shift out of just being students to being developers, where we saw we could carry the field farther by developing patterns in that area. But then I was still finding that for myself, I was so excited when I learned NLP. I was just 23 years old. I was reflecting on that, thinking about our call today. I figured back, how old was I? Yeah, I was just 23. That's a long time ago now. That was 1977. And so you can do the math. Yeah, it was so exciting. I was a clinical psych graduate student, and for me, it was a big shift in orientation to go from things that were more theoretical, learning about theories of personality development, theories of change, and so on, and psychodynamic theory, this kind of theory, that kind of theory, and then to go learn NLP, where it's all about not so much theory, but observable results. Watching the nonverbals. The inner structure of experience, as all of us know well. That was a huge paradigm shift in the field at that point in time. Huge, really huge. So I was very excited, as was Steve, and we were in this together. But nonetheless, as excited as I was, and as many results as I was seeing with clients, with people in workshops, I had the frustrating experience myself that things weren't working for me, that it was extremely rare that any of these things was actually working for me personally. So, and I thought that wasn't fair. So it's like I wanted to get the benefits too. So I really gave myself the challenge of working with people who had their life's biggest issue and nothing had helped, even NLP. And I said to them, our agreement is going to be, we're going to sit down, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Neither of us will know what I'm going to do. The only thing I'll guarantee you is that I won't do anything I know to do. And that you can go home when you have what you want. So that was our agreement. And then I started using listening for presuppositions, using sort of the language patterns approach. And very quickly in the first meeting like that, it led to the core transformation method just sort of came out. And there it was. it, I don't know how exactly, but there it was, all together in one piece, pretty much. It all came out together. And as soon as I got to that, like you talked about how it was a profound experience, or some, maybe you didn't use that word, but a significant one. And when I worked with this first person and I saw him go to this state that I could see was profound. And he described it as something like peace, but it wasn't just this simple ho-hum peace. It was like this peace where I could see, like, wow, this is really a significant experience he's having. So it took us to a different level of experience. And so my NLP background made it easy for me to find the pattern in what I was doing. So a little bit like what you described, it was part conscious but part unconscious how that came out. And then I could easily pattern what had happened, try it with the next person, and okay, the same thing happened. And tried it with 12 people, and it happened with every single one of them. So that's when I recognized, okay, this is something I can teach. Mm-hmm. So, and I'll just say, if I may, even in doing core transformation, it was most powerful for the people I was working with rather than for me. But seeing how strongly other people were experiencing the results, that gave me the persistence to use it repeatedly with myself. And it was the first method where I started getting consistent results then. I really started experiencing it myself.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's certainly fantastic work. And just for the benefit of people that might be on the call that really don't know what the core transformation process is, can you sort of give us a encapsulated version of what's it all about, Alfie?
Okay, well, I'll give you, you're doing a presentation on it, right? At the upcoming, so they can learn more there. We have, Tamara is teaching a training on it. We have at the end of this month in Colorado. And I get good feedback on your trainings, by the way, Michael. I'm really happy to have you teaching the core transformation work. But to get back to your question, a thumbnail. If people have background in NLP, I can give a different thumbnail than if people don't. And I know all your people do. So it basically is taking the idea of positive intent and then going to a different level. So if I have a part that makes me eat things that aren't healthy for me and I know are causing me to gain weight when I don't want to, then I can talk about this part of me that is compelled to eat chocolate cake or whatever it is. And that part always has a positive purpose. It's not just that it wants me to be unhealthy, you know. It has a positive purpose. And if we ask, what do you want? The answer might be different. For different people, it might be different. For one person, it might be, the part might go, well, you know, I'm trying to feel better. You know, I want to feel better. For another person, it could be something, I want to relax. There can be many different positive intents. But so often the first level of positive intention has to do with something that's given or received, or like something like safety is something that is in relationship to the environment. Even I want to feel better, that's in relationship to other people, to what's going on, even to myself. It's in relation to things that are happening in the world and in my life. And if I want security or safety, those are things in relationship to my environment. And those are the first kinds of positive intents that come out.
And if I might interject, Connie Rae, I think for a lot of the folks here that are hypnotists, that's the place where so often we're sort of taught to stop.
Yes. Yes, and in the old NLP, the classic NLP methods, say 6-step reframing, positive intent was already known and used, but we would stop. We were taught to stop when we got to something positive. So if we get to something like safety, or we would stop and go, great, I agree with safety. I like being safe. Or feeling better. I like feeling better. So we stop. And then we find other choices. But with core transformation, we keep right on going. We're only beginning. We're just getting warmed up. And then I won't go through the whole thing now, because you can you can get this in a number of places online. But if you go far enough with positive intent, and if you go in the particular, if you ask the questions in a particular precise way, you inevitably always get to something that's beyond something given and received, to just anything you can do, anything you can accomplish, to something that just is, to this state of being. And it's generally something that's very profound when it's experienced. Something like peace, something like universal love, something like beingness or presence, or even oneness with God. People will say, it's this oneness with God. And the way the process brings these states out, it becomes easy and natural and automatic to experience them. And then to begin, the process helps us shift things over. So rather than doing something like eating or biting my nails or whatever it might be, in order to try to get to feeling better, in order to try to get to peace, we turn things around completely so that we start our lives with the profound state of beingness or peace. And then we find everything's different when we're starting that way. Mm-hmm. But doing it with the process, it becomes natural and automatic in life. It's not something we have to remind ourselves to do or to try to do. Like, there are a lot of meditation practices that are aimed at cultivating a sense of peace or cultivating a sense of love or compassion. And these always involve at least a tiny bit of effort, of attempting to do something. And with core transformation, it is effortless, actually. It's more that we find the true and pure and very natural, authentic experience of this that's already there in our nature. We could describe it that way. And we allow that to come out and spread. So we don't create another layer of control over or managing over our experience and try to make ourselves feel peaceful. Okay, I'm just going to meditate. I will be peaceful. I will be calm. It's more that it just happens. And when it's just happening and we're living from that state, as those of you on the call who have already been through it can describe, then it becomes natural and easy, often automatic, to do the things we want to be doing. So it might be that we just naturally don't need to bite our nails anymore, or whatever it was that we were working with. The behaviors, one of the first people I was working with was a man who said, I'm going to work with my temper. I get angry at my stepdaughter, and I love my stepdaughter, but I get triggered, and I have this hair-triggered temper, and then I just go at her, and it's not good for my relationship with her nor with her mother. It's not working out in our family system. So I want to change this. So when we went through this process, and he was now living from his core state, then he felt naturally, it's not like he had to try to contain his temper. It was just more, this love that he naturally felt inside was just expressing itself. So yeah, he told me later when I called him up to find out how it was going, he said, yeah, it's all different. It's all different. So yeah, so that's a thumbnail core transformation.
Yeah. I like to tell people, I think one of the things that you get from core transformation is you get to find out what it is that you've been up to all along, and to discover that you've actually already got it.
Yes, I like that way of describing it. Yeah.
So core transformation, a lovely thing. And now, when people have finally come to identify you as the core transformation lady, then the wholeness work begins to present itself. I'm a little curious, if you don't mind, before you get into the details about that, I'm a little curious about what the wholeness work came out of, because I think there was some stuff going on with you, and I don't know if it was health-wise or what, and I know that there's some stuff about Ramana Maharshi that I think is really interesting.
Yes, you're right on all of the above. Both core transformation and the wholeness work came out of my personal journey. And I think that's why they end up going to a much deeper level than anything that I knew before that time. So the core transformation was the first piece. And then there was a time in my life, it was in 1997, when I had this experience. It's not just a single experience, but in this phase in my life, it felt to me like things are falling apart. So I had this, in one sense, a successful, trainer, writing books, doing all these things. But I felt that for me personally, things were falling apart on a lot of levels. And the biggest challenge that I was very clearly facing was a big health crisis where I didn't know what was happening. It started off with what I think was pneumonia. I self-diagnosed. I didn't go to, by the time I went to a doctor, he diagnosed it as bronchitis. And I felt it in my lungs earlier. Anyway, it didn't clear up like I expected with the antibiotics. Instead, it sort of went into something that I didn't understand. And no doctors seemed to understand either, because I'd go to the doctors, but I couldn't function anymore. I was into this state where I was 24/7 experiencing as if there was electricity going through my body all the time. And it was especially along the central column, as if there was this constant fountain of charge, which is kind of weird to say. I'd tell people this and they'd either kind of think I was going crazy, or they'd kind of go, okay, I don't know what to make of this, but never heard of this before, and the doctors, for the most part, didn't know what to make of it either. It's like, okay, electricity, all right, I don't know. But it was so strong that I felt as if when I looked in front of the mirror, surely I would be seeing this fountain come out, which I never saw, of course. It was a subjective experience, not a literal. But I think something was happening with my nervous system, and I didn't understand what it was. At the time, I actually had a good friend of mine who was a doctor, in fact, but I didn't go to him as a doctor. I was talking to him about this, and he said, Connie Rae, has it ever occurred to you this might be a spiritual awakening? And I said, no, I don't think it's that, because this does not feel good, And at that time, I had the idea that if it was a spiritual awakening, it should feel good. Well, as I started learning more, I discovered that what people call spiritual awakening doesn't always feel good, and that this thing of there are people who have had these kind of experiences where they do call it that. And I myself keep an open mind I still don't know what it was. I don't know what it is. I have some guesses, but I don't really know. All I really know is that it was pretty intense, and it was so intense I basically couldn't do anything else.
Wow.
I couldn't much function. I could do some really low-key things, like do some things that were familiar to me, like cook meals, preferably ones that I already knew how to cook, do gardening, haul wood, really simple things I could do. And but reading was too much. It was beyond my capacity. Walking into a grocery store was too much. It was overwhelming to my system. So I didn't know what to do about this. And so I won't tell the whole story. That would probably get boring. But basically through this what was quite disruptive for me personally, it led me to go through this phase of letting go of everything that I thought I knew at that point in time. And even core transformation, which I had experienced as being very helpful, I let go of that too, and was just open to whatever I needed to learn to hopefully survive and hopefully get through this and hopefully come out perhaps having learned and grown from it. No guarantees. Early on, I was just hoping for survival, but because it felt so intense, I really wasn't sure how long a physical body could tolerate this. I just didn't know. But as a part of my search, I searched in Western medicine. I searched in. I knew what was in NLP already. I I investigated everything I could get my hands on, and including I turned to spirituality because that was an area that I hadn't really systematically explored. So I thought perhaps there was something in this field that perhaps someone knew that would be helpful to me. So that's where Ramana Maharshi comes in. He, for those of you who don't know, aren't familiar with the name, many people consider him one of the greatest. Some people consider him the greatest sage of the last century. He died before I learned about him. But I forget now when he died. I think it was in the 50s. And some of his students, so I tended to gravitate towards his work and the work of some of his students the most strongly. But I was reading anything about anyone who had an awakening experience, or that I wanted to know what they actually experienced. I wasn't so much interested in their theories about it. I didn't really care what their belief systems were. I didn't care what spiritual tradition they were from. I just was interested in people's actual experiences. So, and from that, I really gathered this theme in a lot of Eastern spirituality, not just Ramana Maharshi, this theme about dissolving the ego. And the idea that if we dissolve, that suffering is basically the result of ego, and that if we dissolve the ego, we get off the wheel of suffering. Now, the Buddha talked about that in a way, in his own way, and also many other spiritual teachers. So, and Ramana Maharshi had a certain practice that he had his students do, where he said he asked them, he had his students ask over and over during the day, who am I, who am I, who am I? And he had them repeat that as a constant question. And the wholeness work was inspired by that principle, that perhaps, whatever you think about spirituality, it became clear to me as I got into what I ended up calling the wholeness work, that we can do this in a way that is totally about the structure of experience and doesn't require people to believe anything or not believe anything. And I think that's underneath NLP. That's the most fundamental thing in NLP. It's that it's all about our experience. It's not about having to believe something or not believe something. We find out what's true in our experience. So that's how I was approaching this dissolving the ego thing too. And so if we're going to dissolve an ego, well, what might this be? There are all kinds of definitions, but they're all content-oriented definitions. They're more about theory, not about the structure of experience. So that's where I started doing things differently. And that's why and how I think wholeness work comes to be a contribution, because it ends up finding, we could say perhaps it's about finding this structure of what has been called awakening. And I say that with a little caution, because who knows if I understand it. And yet what I find that I started experiencing and that people experience when I guide them in this process, it's very reminiscent of spiritual accounts. Mm-hmm. And in the last training I taught in Berlin, there was, I forget if it was day 3 or day 4, one of the participants in the training said, I asked for people to share, and he raises his hands, well, that was quite a significant experience. I don't know how to put it into words. And I said, thank you for sharing. If you were to try putting it into words, what would you say? And because you might in trying have something that we can all just benefit from. So he said, and then he began to describe his experience. Rather than trying to interpret his experience, he was just describing it. And he experienced this wash of strong vibrating that came through his system. And it reminded me of my experience, only I didn't know what to make of it. I was having this happen out of context, where it freaked me out, to be to be just blunt about it.
Yeah.
I panicked because of it. It was like, whoa, what is happening? This is so bizarre and so intense, and I have no framework for understanding it. I have nothing. My best guess is I'm probably dying because it feels so intense.
Sure.
But so once there's a context for it, we understand what these things are, then in the wholeness work, sometimes, not always, these things happen in a more gentle way, in a context and framework where we know how to go with it in an easy way and let it do what it's needing to do. So it was for him a part of the change process, a part of something significant shifting, a significant dissolving away that then left him more open, more free, more whole, which is, yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So, by the way, I keep thinking as you're talking about this and that it was freaking you out, and there was a place where you thought that you were going crazy, and I just can't help but mention that I remember it was Ram Dass a whole lot of years ago that said something about there comes a place where you will either get enlightened or go crazy, it's like push came to shove for you in a way that moved you to beautiful things.
Exactly. Yeah. And people would sometimes talk to me about, so do you want to have things back to the way it was before, where you can be grounded again and blah, blah, blah. And I go, no, I don't want to go back. I want to go forward, because my feeling, I had the hunch already pretty quickly. I had the hunch that this was a transformational experience. And since I didn't die very soon, I figured it must be about something else. I don't seem to be dying.
And we're glad that you didn't, because this program would be really boring otherwise.
Yeah. You're not so good at channeling dead spirits. Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael. And I'm glad I didn't too. Yeah.
So Connie Rae, I know that there's something that you'd like to share with us, a process that you'd like to share with us. And before we do that, and I'm just going to kind of let you run with it as much as you can, but I'll be here for you. I just want to let people know that occasionally people are writing questions in the chat room and stuff, and they're questions that would sort of be taking us to all sorts of extraneous places. So what I'd like to just let everybody know is if you could hang on to your questions, then after we're done with this, we'll have an opportunity for you to interact with Connie and to do some Q&A stuff, and we'll tell you all how to do that. And then I don't have to monitor the chat room for now. So if anybody's got questions, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not paying attention to you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So anyway, wherever you want to go, Connie. I know, like I said, you've got a process you said that you'd share, and I think that would be lovely.
Tell me again. What did you say? What was the last part?
You have a process that you said. That
yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Well, I would like, we were talking a little bit about the wholeness work, and I would like to introduce everyone to that. And it's easiest to understand through experience rather than through words. So I would like to guide everyone through a short group experience of the wholeness work. And then you may have some additional questions after that. Yes. And I do want to say, I don't think you have to be concerned about any major vibrating or electricity happening as a result of this. I have never once had anybody report that from this simple introduction.
I want to make sure everyone that you are completely grounded.
Yeah. Use the 3-pronged plug for your feet.
I got the tinfoil hat on.
Yes. My experience is, when you mentioned Ram Dass said, there comes a point where either we become awakened or go crazy. And I think that when we have access to the wholeness work, it gives us another option where it can be a lot easier. It can be a lot more gentle, because we already have a way of working with our system that both meets the needs of all of our defense mechanisms and meets the needs of this, what I think is a natural human desire for awakening. I think there is kind of just like a baby starts a baby, but a baby is never going to be, the physical body has this natural propensity to mature into a toddler and then mature into a child and then an adolescent and then a grown person. The physical body has this natural propensity for maturation. And I think our psyche also has a natural propensity for maturation. And what the wholeness work does is help us move along that trajectory in a gentle way so that it doesn't become such a challenge. That's my experience with it. Yes. And it's because of being able, it gives us a way of noticing and facing and dealing with our defense coping mechanisms head on and also dissolving them in a gentle, kind way where we don't feel like we're losing anything. We feel like we're gaining something. So, but back to this guided experience that I promised you. So this comes out of the understanding or the idea that perhaps the spiritual teachers are onto something when they say dissolving the ego is key. And if it's key for something called awakening, and awakening seems to always involve having a more mellow, stress-free life, well, maybe this would be a useful thing for all of us. So my first thought was, well, what is the ego then in terms of experience? And I thought, well, the ego is the I. The simplest way of thinking about it is it's the I. And now that still doesn't tell us much, but we're always using sentences that begin with the word I. We're always saying, I am doing this. I'm going grocery shopping. I'm attending a webinar right now. I am talking with my friends. I need to talk to my spouse about something and work something out. I want to solve this problem. I this, I that. I want to go out and enjoy myself and have a good time at a dance tonight. I is always in there. So what is this I? And that's what we're going to explore. So, and to explore it, wherever you are, if you find a comfortable position, you perhaps adjust in your chair if you're sitting up, just a little bit, and get in a comfortable position, and then let your eyes closed, or you can do it with your eyes open if you prefer. But with your eyes either closed or open, you can let yourself take a deep breath, let everything relax that relaxes, and notice whatever body sensation you might notice. So right in this moment, if I just close my eyes and sense in the body, the first thing that I'm aware of is this place at the back of my rib cage. Then I'm aware of something in the back of my head, just inside my head, the lower scalp area, there's a sensation there. So whatever you notice, you can notice. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you think it's positive or negative or neutral. It doesn't matter if it's a problem or not a problem. It's just any sensation in the body. If you don't find anything else, you can notice the sensation of where my legs touch the chair, for example. There's a sensation of pressure. So y'all have something? Okay, great. And so now you can just notice this sensation that you're noticing. What's the size and shape of it? What's the extent of it? How much space does it take up? So this place in the back of my rib cage, it's like it's a little narrow band that doesn't go very far. It's not very thick. It actually extends out quite a ways, but it's not very thick. So, and then noticing this in the area, sense in and through the area and notice the sensation quality a little bit. And it can be anything, like sensing in and through this area in the lower rib cage for me. It's as if it's a little bit dark and it's still, there's no movement there. And it's as if there's a subtle density to it. Not totally thick, but not totally airy. So now I'm going to ask a couple of you to just, maybe one or two of you, to share what you've noticed, or maybe Michael, you and Karen can share what you've noticed, just so we have a little quick variety of what people have noticed, where it's located, and the sensation quality.
Okay. Well, I guess the first thing that I was just noticing was just feeling my arms on the chair.
Uh-huh.
Kind of evenly balanced on both sides. I was aware of both of them at once, and and nothing particularly dramatic about them.
Yeah. Often there isn't with this. When we're just checking a body sensation, often it's fairly neutral, but there might still be a sense of, sometimes people notice some leftover from the day, and in that case, it's not necessarily completely neutral, but oftentimes it is. It might just be this sense of fizziness or prickliness or warmth or coolness. Is anyone else like to share what you've noticed?
I noticed a sensation of a puffy balloon in my sinuses, behind my nose.
Oh, okay, lovely. Yeah.
Drew down my throat.
Okay, great. So that she's telling us the area, the space it takes up, and then this sort of sensation quality, it's sort of like a puffy balloon. Yeah, great. And then sensing in and through, Karen, does it feel airy inside, or what's the sensation in and through the area?
Puffy.
Just kind of puffy all through the area. Okay, excellent. Okay, great. And I think maybe that's enough of sharing about that. And so you get the idea. It could be anything. I could notice something in my stomach. It could be warm. It might be cool. It might be moving or still. Just the sensation that you experience when there's a sensing in and through the area. So now we're going to get to something a little bit more interesting. You could say, and it would be true, I am aware of this sensation, right? Whatever sensation you have found, you could say, and it would be true, I am aware of this sensation. So I am aware of this sort of still place here at the bottom of my rib cage. I am aware of this sensation, right? So just pause a moment and think that to yourself. You don't have to say it out loud, but you can just think that to yourself. Oh, yes, it's true. I am aware of this sensation, right? And it's useful to actually pause and do that. I am aware of this sensation. Because now we're going to ask the strange question, and that is, when you think this question to yourself, or this statement to yourself, I am aware of this sensation, located wherever it's located, I am aware of this. Where is the I located? Where's the I that's aware of the sensation? And just notice the first location that comes into awareness. So I am aware of this sensation. And whoever notices something, if you raise your hand, I can see you. I've got it on gallery view, so I can see. Okay, so Dawn, you've got something. And then Joseph next. So Dawn, can you share where you found something?
It's kind of in the back of my skull, and it's a little bit outside too.
Okay.
It's kind of like a cup shape, and it maybe, goes inside a little bit, and it's also outside a little bit.
Okay, great. And sensing in and through the space, Dawn, what's the sensation quality there?
It's
and
not empty, but it's kind of light, low density kind of.
Okay.
It's gray.
Okay, great. And now, so thanks, Don. Now I'm going to check in with Joseph. You mentioned, you raised your hand earlier.
Yeah, my eye was right here.
Great. And about what's the size and shape approximately?
It was spherical, or is spherical.
Uh-huh.
The size is almost basketball size.
Okay, great. And if you haven't already for yourself, you can notice the size and shape of yours. And then Joseph, if you could check sensing in and through this out here that's basketball size, what's the sensation quality in and through the area? And by that I mean, is there the sense, is it light or is it dark? Is it warm or cool? Is there the sense, it might be that it feels dense, or it might be open and airy. It might be moving, it might be still. Those are just some examples. It might be none of those. But when you sense in and through, what's the sensation quality?
It's light, both in color and in weight. And it's pulsing.
And it's what?
Pulsing.
Pulsing. Okay, great. So it's light and then has this pulsing quality. Great. Thank you, Joseph.
Sure.
Yeah, and now who else would like to share what you've noticed? They're all different, and there's no right and wrong answer. It's just what you notice. So, and especially if there's someone who's never done this exercise before and you're happy to share, I'd love to hear from you. If not, we open it up to everyone who, whether or not you've done it before. Okay. Anyone? I'm not. Oh yeah, Rory, you have.
I've done this before. Sorry.
Yes.
But I had like a little balloon on the left side of my rib cage. It was like the consistency of like a stress ball, so maybe about this size, and it would have feeling like sand on the inside, like kind of gritty.
Okay, and that's the eye that was noticing was on the left side of the rib cage. Great, excellent. Okay, so again, you can begin to get the sense of how varied these are, and I'd like to just. So we've had one that was outside the body, and one that was part out and part in, and then one that was inside the body. And so it can be located anywhere, absolutely anywhere. Sometimes they're far, far away. Once I had someone say it was really far away, and I said, so how far? And he goes, well, really far. And I go, well, do you mean like 5 feet, 5 miles, or like 500 miles? And he goes, no, it's like it's in another galaxy, you know. So he meant really, really far. So it can be that far away. That's unusual, but it's possible. And they can be very much inside the body. They can really be anywhere, inside the head, inside the torso. So the important thing is to just go with whatever your first guess is. And as the story Michael started off with, it can be just as useful to guess or make it up as to really know where it is. So if you're not sure, I would encourage you for the exercise, just guess. So how many of you already notice a location for your eye? Can you say that? Okay, great. That's most of you. Anybody not? And oftentimes there are a few people who aren't sure yet right at the beginning. If anyone's not sure, just go ahead and guess. So you can go back to the, I am aware of this sensation. And now where's the eye located? And just like the first location that comes into mind, you just go with that. Okay. So, and has everybody had a chance to notice the size and shape of your eye and also the sensation quality in and through? I'd like to check if anyone has questions about yours, about how to find the sensation quality. Let me know.
Beth has her hand up here. If I can unmute her.
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Beth, go ahead.
Hi, I apologize. No, I was just saying that I had found it.
Okay.
I was trying to be a good student. I'm sorry, Michael.
All right.
Oh, okay. Does anyone have any questions, or if you've all got the?
If you can still hear me, I will say something now that I have an opportunity, which was interesting.
Go ahead, Beth.
Was that when you asked that question, I did notice it above my head, half in, half out, very light. But there was also a moment where that part of me had a moment of fear that, uh-oh, I'm being found.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Beth. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Isn't that interesting? It's like, whoa, oh, I'm being caught, you know? And I want to, like, it's like, here this is. It's been a part of our unconscious structure all along. And yet sometimes there's this sense of, oops, I'm caught now. My game is up. And at the same time, I want to let you know, Beth, and let this aspect know there's nothing that is going to be required of you or your unconscious or this aspect that's now been noticed. It's going to be fully invited to do something, but it won't have to do anything. And that's important to understand about the wholeness work. It's very, very gentle. It's all about invitation and never about force. Absolutely never, ever about force. So if there's reluctance or hesitation, we don't go forward with that. We find out what the system is truly wholeheartedly ready to do, and we never push it to do anything that it's not ready to do and wanting to do. And yeah, so thanks for raising that. And now, did somebody else, Wes, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yes, Connie, I have a question. On the second attempt, I found my eye hidden in the military bunker, like in San Francisco by the Golden Gate. There is this military things from the World War II, and mine was hidden way back in the bunker, and it was cold. And the challenge was that I immediately started to judge.
It immediately started to what?
To judge it, to make judgment about why it's not pretty shiny and warm.
Yeah.
Why it's in the bunker.
Yes. And you know, actually, Wes, I just want you to know, I thank you for sharing all of this. It's really beautiful because it shows with wholeness work, the way we do this process, everything, each aspect that emerges is as useful and as positive as any other one could be. So in some ways, these ones that are a little cold or not shiny and warm can be more useful, but really it's beyond comparison. They're all useful. It's like, wholeness work is very much like composting. When you compost, all organic matter goes into the compost pile. There's this processing of the organic matter that happens, a natural processing, such that it turns itself back into rich, fertile soil. And that's what we're doing with wholeness work. So nothing is too rotten for the compost pile, and no experiences are turned down by the system in terms of the potential for life that's actually within it. And we'll see more about that as we go a little bit farther. Yeah, thank you for raising that. Okay, so now are you ready to go to the next piece? Okay, we're just about ready to do a little experiment. But before we do that, we want to explore this word awareness. So we've been taking this sentence, I am aware of this sensation. We've explored the sensation, we know where it's located. We've explored the I, we know where it's located and what it's all about. Now we're going to explore awareness. What is that? And I'll guide you in how I'm going to be using that word because it can be experienced in different ways. So, and I'm using it in a particular way for the process that makes it most effective. And here's what that is. So we know that there's awareness already present in and through the physical body. If awareness wasn't already through the physical body, we wouldn't have noticed that beginning sensation. And so awareness is already through our physical body. It just is there. If somebody comes and bumps me on the knee, I don't have to send my awareness over there to notice. I just automatically notice because awareness is already there, right? So you can pause and kind of sense this right now, how awareness is already through the physical body. When we pause to register it, there can be a noticing of the awareness already there. And awareness is already in the space all around us as well. If we pause to experience it, we can recognize this because if I snap my fingers on one side of my body, of my head, there's an automatic receiving of the sound. If I snap my fingers on the other side, there's an automatic receiving of the sound. Same thing if it's above, below, in front, or behind. So if there's a sound in any direction, there's this automatic receiving of the sound. And because awareness is already there through the space. So there's this sense in which there's this capacity to notice. It is already throughout the space that's all around us and in and through the body. This capacity to experience. And it's true kinesthetically, it's true visually, it's true in terms of sound. Visually, whether our eyes are open or closed, we can easily have this sense of space. We still know that there's space in front of us and behind us and all around. So that's how I'm using this word awareness. Awareness is this capacity to experience that we have in any moment when we pause in this moment. And I'd like to invite all of you to pause in this moment and actually register this. So it's not just a concept, it's about actually experiencing it in the moment. Like, if I pause, there's a sense of space all around. And there's not really an edge to it. I can't find any border to it. Even though I know it mentally that if a sound was, on the other side of the world, I wouldn't hear it. That's a concept. In terms of my experience, I can't find really an edge to this sense of this capacity to notice the space that's all around and through the body. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So to whatever degree it makes sense we'll just go ahead and explore. And the more people do the wholeness work, the more familiar this becomes and the easier it is to feel it, sense into this experience increasingly fully. So we'll just do it. It's fine however it goes for today, for this moment. So let's go back to that eye that you found a moment ago. Wherever yours is located, notice that location and notice the sensation quality in and through the area. So for me, the eye, it's a little bit behind my head, about this big, sensing in and through, slight fuzz, mostly airy. So I'm sensing in and through that area, and you can sense in and through the area of the eye that you found. And then the question is, it's intended to be a gentle question, no pushing, but the question is, we notice what happens when the sensation here in the location of the eye is invited to open, relax, dissolve, melt in and as the full field of awareness that is all around and throughout. And you can just let that happen however it happens. And even if nothing happens, it's fine. Just let it happen or not happen, however it goes, easily and comfortably. And so again, noticing the sensation of the eye in and through the area. The question is, notice what happens when the sensation here, in and through this area, is invited to open and relax in and as the full field of awareness that's all around and throughout. And then there can just be a relaxing into whatever happens. And there's no need to understand it. There's no need to make anything happen differently than it does or doesn't happen on its own. And you can just let things happen until it settles. And then whenever things settle, you can let your eyes open so that I know. Yeah. Okay. So I think most of you, that's it. And if it's still settling, you can stay with it and let it continue while we begin to talk, because I'd like to invite a few people to share what their experience is of this. And you can raise your hand and I'll see it because I've got it on. I think I will. Who did somebody bring? Karen, you've got your hand up. I was seeing my own hand go, oh, Connie Rae. But I think we'll go with Karen.
That was trippy.
Oh.
That was cool.
Oh, yeah. What happened for you?
My eye was down the center of me, from like the back bottom, inside my head, all the way down my core. That was my eye.
Okay.
And when it opened up, I shuddered because it went into a ripple out into everything.
Uh-huh.
It was connected with
Yeah.
All the awareness around. It went from right inside here to all around, like ripples.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Karen. Yeah. Yeah. And who else would like to share? And by the way, it's, yes, Eileen.
Mine, when I invited it to go into the awareness, my eye, which was kind of this amorphous, floaty area right down in front of my thorax, contracted and then began to glow more of like a red. There, I was not aware of any color. It was more neutral before, but as it did, it contracted into itself a little bit, became more of a defined shape, and then became red.
And then became red.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. And so basically it's going, no, thank you very much. I'm not I'm not interested in this invitation to dissolve. When we notice these structures inside, just noticing tends to bring about a certain subtle shift, because these have been things that have been operating. We have been living out of these eyes without knowing that we are. So once we become aware of them, that already gets a certain kind of subtle shift. It's not necessarily the right thing for each eye to dissolve into the whole just yet. And I always take it, when it contracts and becomes more defined, I take that as it's basically going, no, that's not the right thing for me to do right now.
I also had a sense of observation.
You had a sense of what?
Observation. Like it was watching.
I see. Yes, yeah. It was watching. Mm-hmm. So you became clearer about its function and how it's, yeah. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And let's see who else would like to share what happened for you. So again, just like there's never a right or a wrong way, it's always how it goes. And the system always has a wisdom of its own. And the wholeness work is all about following the wisdom of the system and learning some ways to do that meet the system in a deeper level than I knew existed before. So this is just the beginning, but I just, the main thing I want you to know is that you can't do it wrong. A lot of times people end up somehow thinking, mine should look like that other person's. And your system is always going to be wise about how it needs to happen for you. And so when we do the coursework on the wholeness work, it's all about learning to follow that, recognize the wisdom of our own system and follow it. And then magic starts happening. More increasingly, magic starts happening when we learn to follow our system, not to try and force it into some other pattern we've pre-decided we think is good.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyone else have something to share? That can be enough for now too, if that's, if you have something, and for some people, by the way, this first exercise, they go, well, nothing happened at all. I asked this question, but really nothing happened. And I just want to raise that as another possibility. Yes, Wes?
So, Connie Rae, to explore that possibility that nothing happened, which was my case, if there is a routine which I can plant the intention that will happen on its own.
There's, when nothing happens, it generally, and it's similar to what Eileen was reporting on. It basically means we need to go to the next method in order to meet your system in a completely full way. It means that this little invitation is a little premature. It's not ready for the system. Let me offer you a few frames to perhaps help understand this. when these eyes that we're finding, how did they get there anyway, right? How did we end up? It's as if my unconscious thinks that I'm this sort of round thing that's the size of a basketball out in front of me. You know, if you were to go to a party and somebody says, "Oh, who, you know, I'm Jerry, who are you?" And you go, oh, I can tell you, I went to this seminar, I know exactly who I am. I am this round basketball thing that's right in front of me, and it's a little bit, you know, cool or warm or what, light or whatever it was. You know, if we actually did that, people would be looking really funny at us. But the thing is, that is what our unconscious thinks is true. And so, you know, for me, I had this round thing that was back here that's a little bit dense. It's as if my unconscious thinks that's who I am. And that's a very interesting thing, because it means that we're living out of that experience of I. So when I try to solve something, it's this limited space I that is attempting to do it. Now, who am I really? Well, if we start off life as babies without any sense of separate self. Babies don't have a sense of I, right? You see a newborn, developmental psychologists will tell you it comes in much later. That the newborn doesn't differentiate between themselves and the mother and the milk and the carpet. You know, it's all just experience happening. It's all sight, sounds, feelings, sensation. The newborn doesn't have a sense of I. That develops. But then who would have expected we get this funny sense of I? Somehow it gets distorted. So our unconscious forms these structures like we were all finding. And that's a very interesting thing, because it is always smaller than the full field of awareness. So who am I really? And here's where I always say, I don't really know. I don't pretend to know who I'm really, but I know that I'm more than just this funny shaped thing over here behind my head. That's really clear. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's as if I'm going about life operating with a straitjacket on, limiting myself to being much less than who I actually am, because I'm trying to manage the situation and run my life from a small perspective, not from my whole nervous system. So if I'm going to be having the maximum wisdom that I am capable of, then, aside from a theoretical definition, I want to have my full nervous system available. And so that's what we begin to do with the wholeness work. We find these eyes, which are in essence a contraction of consciousness, just like a fist would be a physical contraction. These are contractions of consciousness, of experience. And we let them again dissolve back into the whole. That's basically what we're doing. So that then we begin increasingly experiencing our sense of self as the whole, our whole nervous system. So I find people often reporting to me, it's easier for them to come up with solutions to things. They become wiser, more creative. The problem-solving ability goes up. Social intelligence, emotional intelligence increases. Often people say it's as if the filter that I used to have between me and experience has dissolved away, and I can more see things as they are. And that enables me to react more wisely in situations. So those are the kinds of shifts that tend to happen. But it's not, but the first exercise doesn't necessarily do the whole thing. It rarely does the whole thing. And we generally need a few more steps added on. At the same time, the wholeness work is, in my experience, the most direct method that I know. It's the simplest and most direct method for coming to this experience of living with ease, of getting a deep level, really deep level transformation. So it can happen pretty fast that we begin to have these shifts in experience. So Wes, when you say, okay, nothing much happened, the first exercise in a training, there's always some of the people who are going, nothing really happened at all. Or some people even go, oh, I felt this big resistance, you know. They'll go, great, you're ready for the next exercise, you know. And there we start working with what I call layering, the nesting of eyes that happens. So if there's a fist like this, on a physical level, you know, if I've been tensing up my hand like this on a physical level, it creates stress in the system. And when we have these contractions of consciousness that are the eye, that also creates stress in the system of the psyche. And if my fist is contracted and I forget that I'm doing it, it becomes unconscious. But I'm doing it for decades. Pretty soon I'm going to get more and more worn down. I'm going to have less energy to live my life. I might start feeling like, gosh, I better go see a therapist because I'm tired all the time. I'm feeling stressed out and I don't know what's bothering me. So I'll go see a therapist. But if I go to see a therapist and they're working with all kinds of things, but leave this, I'm still going to be stressed out and I'm still going to get tired. Then when we bring wholeness work in, now we're noticing this basic fundamental contraction of consciousness that is the contraction of the I thought. The contraction of the I thought. Then, and we invite it to open and relax. Okay, so sometimes it does. But sometimes the situation is really more like this. So when nothing happens, it's that the inner structure is actually more like this, that something else is there preventing it from being able to relax. So, and that's what we get into with the next exercise. So that goes beyond what we're going to have time for today, that next piece. But I hope this is enough. It gives you a little taste, at least, of what you can do with wholeness work. I want to say too that what ends up happening when the eyes dissolve, once they do, is that our most fundamental beliefs dissolve along with them. Our assumptions about reality, our impositions on reality dissolve along with them. And it leaves us open to experience reality as it is. Mm-hmm. And that always makes us wiser, more creative. And interestingly enough, it seems to make people more compassionate and kind-hearted and feel better. It just seems to be how it goes. But not because we're trying to make ourselves feel better, just because, well, why not? You know, if you look at a newborn baby, if they're fed, as long as their basic needs are met, they're warm, dry, fed, rested, the newborn baby tends to be just there, happy. If there's not something going physically off, and we enter more of that state again, where there's just it's just this wide open consciousness that's enjoying this wonderful experiment we call life as a human being on this planet. And isn't it amusing, all the things that happen in this experiment we call life as a human being on this planet? And it begins to be more enjoyable to us, just because of a natural enjoyment, not because we're trying to make it so. So yeah, I hope that gives you a glimpse. There's much more in the book. There's a book on the wholeness work. You can get to if you want to see the next step. We have online video trainings. We have various things.
Yeah, there is, and I might just mention at this point, there is a 2-day training and a 3-day training that are both online, and there's live training that you've got coming up. I know, in fact, there's 2 things I might mention. That there is a core transformation training, I understand, September 27th through the 29th that Tamara is doing. And then coming to wholeness, this process in 3 days, 4th, 5th, and 6th of October, Connie Rae is presenting that one. And then get information about that at andreasnlptrainings.com. Is that right?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I so much enjoy the live trainings because there we get to follow with the same group of people through a series of formats so we can see how it unfolds and in a way that's respectful to each person. So the things that like Wes was bringing up and Eileen was bringing up and Beth was bringing up, we can follow them and find the way to, with kindness, include everything, include all of that.
Well, and by
Yeah.
the way, as you mentioned, with kindness, one of the things that I think is worth talking about to a group of hypnotists, after all, is I think a lot of us, depending on where we were trained or who we were trained by and what we understand hypnosis is about or whatever it was that made us gravitate to the idea of giving suggestions for a living, we've got this idea that somehow or another we've been engaged in the process of telling people how to experience things. And what's so beautiful about this is that it's just open, that it is just that invitation, and that it takes whatever it is that comes rather than trying to impose something on the person you're working with. And I just have so much respect for that.
Yeah, that's been, I think that was the thing that I needed to, in my own personal journey, that's what I needed more strongly, so that I needed something like wholeness work. And it's like at a certain phase, that becomes what the system needs to be able to do the maximum healing and the maximum growth and so on, that we let go of trying to make our system grow and heal, but we discover the natural propensity that's actually there, and then it can happen in the most authentic way.
Yeah. Now, I've got a question that might be, it might be a little big for the time that we've got, so I'm just really looking for the simplest sort of answer that you can give us. But, you know, we've had an experience of this process, so we notice some sensation, for instance, in our body. But I usually don't go see somebody to work with me because I have a sensation in my body, unless it's a particularly troublesome one. But I might show up because I've got this challenge with my difficult mother-in-law, for instance.
Yes, absolutely.
So how does that hook into this?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, it's really quite simple. We just take the mother, let's say it's okay, my mother-in-law, I get so mad, blah, 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 or whatever, or I feel controlled or contained, whatever the feeling response, that's the starting place instead of the body sensation. So if I get so mad, okay, where's the feeling of madness? Oh, it's this churning right here in my solar plexus. Okay, notice the sensation quality. Now you could say, I am aware of the sensation, right? Where's the I who notices? So that's how we work it. And then we need to know how to find the layering of eyes. And that's, I think, bigger than I want to go into.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do it justice. But it's an important question, because using this is an evolutionary way. It means taking all of those things that bother us in our life and running the process on them. And then that really does amazing things in terms of helping us continue to evolve.
And so I'm curious, Connie Rae, did we tonight find the I, or did we find an I?
Well, we find, usually for most people, we find the I that's present in that moment. It's not the only one. We find many more later on.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when we find the layering of eyes right away, we'll find more right there in that moment.
I'm kind of disappointed with that, because I really liked the one I found and the expansion it went through, and I thought I had it handled.
Yes. Yeah. You had one that already was ready to just, be composted and go into the hole. And now
I thought I was done. I thought I was now whole.
Yeah.
No, I get it. That's very cool. Thank you for that very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, this has been lovely. We usually do have some questions and stuff at the end, and
let's see how many we can get to. Yeah.
Let's see if anybody raise your hand. I know people have been writing things. Melissa.
How about because I'm hard of hearing, it might be most efficient if you repeat a couple from chat. Just repeat them for me, and the essence of the question, and then we can get right into the answer pretty quickly.
Oh,
is that okay?
Yeah. If you got a question, you need to write it in the chat room, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, let's try while people have time to write it. Let's open Melissa's mic and let her ask hers.
Okay, Melissa.
Or if you prefer, just have somebody speak too. That's fine. However.
Talk to us.
How's the volume? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So first, thank you. I'm such a big fan of your work. And you know, from the first exercise in your book, I started playing, you know, first in my own mind and then on anyone else's mind that was open and willing. And I find that application-wise, just elements of it can be thrown into almost any bit of change work. There's something about that widening of scope and expansiveness of self that you can bring to almost anything. So I did want to share that I've been playing with it since I first read your book, and your book is on my list for all my students because I think it's just it's beautiful. My question would be, since you've been running this process for yourself and your own journey, do you find that you kind of live from a more expansive place, and obviously life keeps happening? Are you, you know, would you say that you've broadened your perspective enough that you don't necessarily get trapped in what did you call it, a contraction of consciousness, which I just love that term. Or is it something that maybe like Michael Watson had once said to me, you know, it's not that he doesn't do the same stuff, at least he says he's on to himself though. You know, like, like, do you notice when you contract, and can you more quickly, you know, does it build a certain resilience with practice?
Yes, I think all of those things are yes to a whole bunch of what you said. Now, I want to say something else too about the idea of expansion. It's useful to be a little cautious about using that word. I never actually use that word in guiding clients because it can lead to a polarity experience rather than a true integrated experience. So it's my experience ongoing is not that I am expanded. It's just that I'm here. That's it. It's really simple. It's really, really ordinary. You know, it's much more mundane in a way than the expanded thing. But I mention this because more often people from spiritual practice than from NLP practice have this come up. Sometimes people from spiritual practice interpret this opening and relaxing into awareness as if I am now expanded. But is a little bit more of a partial integration rather than a complete integration. Once there's a complete integration, we don't feel expanded, we're just there. And there's no boundary, but it's not that I am expanded. So often people from sometimes people from a spiritual discipline have the idea that expansiveness is better, and so it's a polarity state. So, and there actually is an opposite to it that also needs to be integrated. So that's a little bit more, that goes to really fully answer that more, goes beyond what we can do here. But I think what I can say is for myself, it becomes more ordinary. And by the way, the advanced formats, when we get into days 4 to 6 of the training, then we go into some different formats that include some different principles and get into some more of the subtleties like that, like you're bringing in here actually. So, but before we get there even, my experience is sometimes I have more tolerance. I'm more okay with however my state is. I don't require of myself that I always feel great. But at the same time, I tend to feel fine, you know, more of the time. And I notice it's easier for me my buttons don't get pushed as much. Things that would have pushed my buttons before, it's just like, it doesn't plug me in. That's a a really huge shift for me. Relationship things that used to plug me in just don't. You know, it's more, I see the humor in it. I see the other person's struggle. I see my own struggle, you know, and it's all, I have compassion for it all, mine and theirs, and it's all fine. You know, it's okay. We're in this struggle together. Not really a problem. And so there's much more of that kind of attitude about things. more of an ease with things, and it's easier for me to notice the contractions. You mentioned that too, or the sometimes I think of it in myself as my defensive reactions. I'm much more aware of the just the beginning of myself beginning to feel defensive, whereas before I would have gone down the whole pathway and go, okay, I really got defensive there. And now it's more like, okay, there's this little bitty tendency starting to, yes, include that. I can, yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, this is really beautiful. I got to say, Connie, we're running to the end of our time, and
yes.
I hate to do it, but my father was a railroader, and I have this reputation for watching the clock and making sure the train pulls out of the station when it's supposed to. So we could go on with this for a long time. It would be lovely to spend time with you and everybody. Remember, there's Coming to Wholeness, October 4th through the 6th, and it's in Boulder. Is that right?
What is going to be in Boulder?
Your Coming to Wholeness is in Boulder.
Oh yes, it's actually in Westminster, right near Boulder, in Colorado. Here, home base. Yeah.
Colorado. Yeah. So everybody, October 6th. What a perfect
yes
thing to do. So thanks again for being here. I can't thank you enough. And well, as I've said, big love to you. You really have made a tremendous difference in my life, and I'm just really happy to be able to share you with this audience. And thanks.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's been a total pleasure to just have a chance to chat a little bit with you and your people. So thank you, and Karen for co-hosting.
Thank you. Michael, thank you for bringing her to us.
Well, you're really welcome. So by the way, Connie Rae, before you go, we do have one last thing to do. So just a really quick announcement. I want to remind everybody the recordings will be available tomorrow. On the virtual chapter Facebook group, or the IACT IMDHA forum, if you're a member of that, or the YouTube channel. So go out there and get it, everybody. And remember to claim your CEUs if you're entitled to them from the appropriate organization. And now, Connie Rae, what we're going to do is we are going to wish you well and send you off with a tradition here. And that is, in a moment, we're just going to open up everybody's microphones. So in a great cacophony of love and affection, we will be able to. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really great.
Thank you, Connie. It was awesome.
Love you, Connie Rae.
Thank you.
Connie Rae, thank you so much.
Wonderful. Connie Rae. Very good.
Thanks so much.
All right.
See you next month.
Bye-bye, everybody. See you next month.
Come back to Hawaii, Connie.